Hello, hi, and welcome to this episode of the Mandy Meyer Podcast. As per usual, this is the podcast where we chat all about your health, your fitness, your goals, you achieving those goals, and just seeing a tremendous amount of progress in not only your fat loss, but your health expedition as well. In today's episode, I'm going to be chatting about macronutrients, and I'm going to answer that question that most people out there have. Do you have to track your macros for fat loss to take place? And the simple answer is a very straightforward no, N-O. You don't need to be tracking macronutrients for fat loss to take place. And let me break that down even further for you. You actually don't have to be tracking anything for fat loss to take place. Now, before there's confusion, I am going to explain what I mean by that. But again, fat loss can take place without you tracking anything. Remember, this is where the explanation comes in. Remember that tracking anything that you are doing within your health and fat loss expedition really just acts as a tool, right? So it's just one of the tools that you can use that's within your fat loss or your health and fat loss expedition in the toolbox, okay? So you can open that toolbox and you can potentially use tracking as a tool. But I know this is a crazy concept. Fat loss can take place without tracking anything. It is actually crazy. You know, I sit and I have a look at all the messaging online on all these different health influencers or fat loss influencers profiles, and they've each got their own narrative that they push in. And a lot of people push the narrative of you have to be tracking macronutrients for fat loss to take place. You don't have to be tracking anything, okay? Fat loss, the concept is quite simple. Now, please don't confuse simple with easy. Easy, it is definitely not, but the concept of fat loss is simple. I don't know when and how social media, well, I do know how, but it has become so confusing because so many people are pushing different narratives because it is what worked best for them. Or most likely what is happening, they've got a product that they want to sell you. So they say you have to track macronutrients for fat loss to take place. Click on the link in bio to purchase my fat loss macronutrient plan. And immediately, that is why they're saying that you have to track macronutrients. But like I said, you can get away with fat loss and creating a healthier lifestyle without tracking anything. And by that, I mean, you don't need to track your steps. You don't need to track your macronutrients. You don't need to track your calories. Is that tool going to help you? I want to say when it comes to your calorie tracking, is that going to help you stay on track and keep you accountable and give you structure and give you a bit more control with your food choices? Absolutely yes. Okay. When it comes to tracking your steps, is that going to help motivate you to maybe push for another 100 steps or another 1,000 steps? Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the times tracking your data is a very good tool. It's sort of like, okay, where you say, I need to budget or you need to budget for the month. Now, not calories, I'm talking about your actual money. You get paid X amount per month. You have to budget because now all of a sudden mid-month you're out of money. Now you need to try and figure out where that money is being spent and where you could potentially save a little bit of money. So what you would do is track your spending. You would track your spending to see where that extra spending is taking place, and then you can tweak your spending and move forward with those tweak calculations so you can potentially save a bit of money, right? So again, tracking anything acts as a tool of keeping track of the data. But again, these things can take place without being overly pedantic about tracking. So let's go back to the initial questions. Do you have to track macronutrients for fat loss to take place? And the simple answer here is no, you don't need to track them pedantically. You don't need to be over fixated about every single little split of macronutrient that you are consuming on a daily basis. When you actually go into detail of tracking your macronutrients, it can become very, very overwhelming. And what is the fundamental of fat loss? It's about being within a calorie deficit over a consistent period of time. So I would always suggest rather just focus on your calorie consumption, the amount of calories that you're consuming on a daily basis, if you are tracking your calories, and create consistency within that. And then secondly, very importantly, is focus on the quality of your food choices. Focus on the serving sizes of your food choices. By doing that, you're going to get good quality food choices, so a split of all macronutrients, and you're going to be focusing on your serving sizes, which is potentially going to help you consume a little bit less food, so a little bit less calories. And by focusing on your food choices, say having a good split of all different food choices, is really going to help you create balance, okay? Like I said, when you overly focusing on your macronutrient splits, it just becomes so super overwhelming. Yes, you can have a good guideline of your macronutrient split, and you can be like, okay, 40% carbohydrates, 30% protein, 30% fats. Do you have to go and hit those percentages spot on every single day for fat loss to take place? Absolutely not, because fat loss doesn't take place when you hit X amount of grams or X amount of protein. Fat loss takes place when you've created a calorie deficit overall. Now, when I mention food quality or the quality of your food choices, that's really going to help with adherence to your calories. So if you're having a good balance of protein, complex carbohydrates, as well as your fats, you look at bulking those meals up with your veggies, regardless of whether it's a carrot or a butternut or a green bean. Veggies in general are amazing for your health. They're going to add volume to your meals, and that along with your protein, so the fiber from your veggies, as well as the volume from your veggies, so you're going to get a lot of food along with the protein, that's really going to help with your adherence. Now, again, being overly pedantic about something is just overcomplicating it to the point where you're going to cause yourself overwhelm. And why would you want to cause overwhelm in something that is actually fairly simple? Again, let's not confuse simple with easy. By no means am I saying that it is easy, but you're making it more difficult for yourself when you believe that there is the perfect macronutrient split or the perfect amount of carbohydrates to consume for fat loss to take place. Like I said, at the end of the day, you want to create balance. Fat loss takes place when you consume a little bit less food and you exercise or move a little bit more on a consistent basis. And like I said, all of this can be done without tracking absolutely anything. The tracking of certain things does make it that you have a little bit more control. It helps with motivation. It helps with accountability. But the one thing from my opinion that I would suggest you don't get overly fixated on is tracking your macronutrients down to the T. What I focused on in my 40 kilogram fat loss, and I still focus on up until this day, is my overall calorie consumption, the quality of the foods that I am choosing to eat, and then my protein intake. So if there's one macronutrient that I do focus on, and again, not even down to the perfect, for the lack of better words, grams of protein. I just make sure that I have enough protein with the meals that I am consuming, okay? And again, all of this I did over my 40 kilogram fat loss, as well as up until now, whilst I'm still maintaining that 40 kilogram fat loss, I've never been overly pedantic about the perfect macronutrient split. And I mean, look at me, I turned out okay. I mean, I managed to lose 40 kilograms and I'm still maintaining that loss. But like I said, one thing I do place emphasis on is the quality of my food choices, and I just make sure that there's a good balance of the macronutrients, okay? But again, I don't focus on every single last gram of every single macronutrient. I tried that once during my 40 kilogram fat loss expedition, during that phase where I was losing fat, and I'll tell you, it just overwhelmed me to the point where I lost focus of what was really important, and that was creating a calorie deficit, eating balanced food choices, and creating moderation within my food choices and adding of the fun foods. I totally lost focus of that because now I was too worried about, oh my goodness, I ate 1 extra gram of carbohydrate. What's going to happen? Okay. So again, you don't want to get to that point. And again, I'll ask that question, what is the best macronutrient split? Or should we be tracking our macronutrients for fat loss to take place? Number one, there's no best macronutrient split. You want to create balance. You want to get a good amount of all your food groups. And like I said, yes, keep an eye on your protein as one of the macronutrients. But when you're choosing quality food, your other macronutrients, such as your fats and your carbohydrates, what you'll find is most likely at the end of the day, they're going to sort themselves out without you being overly fixated on it. So again, keep in mind that social media out there is just confusing absolutely everything, okay? And you don't necessarily need to be tracking everything down to the T for fat loss to take place. For fat loss to take place, you need to be consuming a little bit less food, so eating within a calorie deficit and moving a little bit more, adding more healthier choices such as vegetables to your plan every single day, drinking a little bit more water. And again, I know I make it sound simple, but it really is simple. And again, it's not easy. I know that for a fact. But we're making it more difficult for ourselves by overcomplicating the matter. And really, at the end of the day, my goal is to simplify this process for you. Because, like I said, just if you're going to overcomplicate it and you're going to overwhelm yourself, it's just not going to seem doable. The moment you simplify the process to what it really is, right, creating a healthier lifestyle, it removes the overwhelm. And that's what I want, because when you are not overwhelmed or you're not over fixated on absolutely every single gram of every single little thing, it feels doable. That's where you start pushing forward. That's where you're like, I can absolutely do this because it really isn't that overcomplicated. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who really knows it is not easy, Mandy.